The first thing Dave Thornton noticed about being abducted by aliens was how damn cold their spaceship was. "Jesus Christ," he muttered, his breath forming little clouds in front of his face. "You guys ever heard of central heating?" The aliens, three spindly, blue-skinned creatures with bulbous eyes and what looked like gills on their necks, stared at him from behind a transparent barrier. One of them spoke, its voice translated through some unseen device. "The specimen continues to emit sound waves despite suboptimal thermal conditions." "Fascinating." Dave rolled his eyes. "The specimen has a name. It's Dave. And yeah, I can talk while I'm cold. I'm from Minnesota. This is practically summer back home." The aliens exchanged glances, their movements deliberate and cautious, like they were afraid of pulling a muscle. "Subject demonstrates remarkable resilience to temperature variance," the tallest alien noted, tapping something into a floating holographic display. "Consistent with Class 12 Deathworld adaptation." Dave sat up on the metal examination table they'd placed him on. "Deathworld? Is that what you call Earth?" The aliens ignored his question. Instead, the one with a silvery collar around its neck approached the barrier. "Human, we represent the Galactic Exploratory Council. Your planet has recently been discovered, and we selected you as a representative specimen for preliminary study." "Lucky me," Dave deadpanned. "Any particular reason you grabbed me from my camping trip instead of, I don't know, contacting our governments?" "Your species is categorized as pre-integration," the alien replied. "Direct diplomatic contact is prohibited until thorough biological assessment is complete." "In other words, you're checking if we're safe to talk to," Dave snorted. "How am I doing so far? Passing the test?" The aliens consulted among themselves in hushed, clicking tones before the one with the collar spoke again. "Your planet presents anomalous readings across several metrics. The atmospheric composition alone would be toxic to 87% of known sentient species." Dave frowned. "What, oxygen? You guys don't breathe oxygen?" "Oxygen is a corrosive gas that destroys cellular structures in most advanced life forms," the smallest alien explained, somehow managing to sound both clinical and horrified. "Yet your species not only tolerates it, but requires it for survival. Fascinating and disturbing." "Ah," Dave scratched his stubbled chin. "Never thought of oxygen as a superpower before." The tallest alien tapped its display again. "Subject demonstrates typical human ignorance of their evolutionary abnormalities. Proceed to physical assessment." The transparent barrier slid open, and two robotic arms extended toward Dave, holding what looked like medical instruments. "Whoa, whoa!" Dave backed away. "I didn't consent to whatever this is." "Consent is immaterial for Class 12 Deathworld specimens," the collared alien stated matter-of-factly. "Your species' unpredictable nature necessitates thorough examination." Dave's camping trip had not prepared him for alien abduction, and certainly not for non-consensual medical probing. In a burst of adrenaline, he grabbed one of the robotic arms and yanked hard. To his surprise, it came away easily in his hands, wires sparking. The aliens recoiled in visible shock. "The specimen has damaged containment equipment," the smallest one shrieked. "Impossible. The manipulator was rated for strength class 6. Dave looked at the broken robotic arm in his hands. "This thing? It feels flimsy as hell. What were you expecting?" "Emergency protocols," the collared alien commanded, its voice trembling. "Activate gravitational restraints." Dave felt a sudden pressure, like someone had dropped a heavy blanket over him. The aliens relaxed visibly as he sank to his knees. "Gravity increased to 3 times standard," the tallest alien noted. "The human should be immobilized." Dave gritted his teeth. The pressure was intense, but he found that with effort he could still move. Slowly, straining with every muscle, he pushed himself back to his feet. The aliens froze in what Dave could only interpret as horror. "Impossible," the collared one whispered. "Subject is resisting 3G containment." Sweating profusely now, Dave took a shaky step forward. "I do CrossFit," he grunted. "This isn't fun, but I can handle it." "Increase to 5G," the smallest alien commanded frantically. The pressure intensified dramatically. Dave collapsed to his hands and knees, gasping. "That's better," he managed, his vision blurring. But even then, he didn't flatten completely against the floor as the aliens clearly expected. The muscles in its limbs, the tallest alien observed with something like awe, They're continuing to function under extreme gravitational stress. Earth's gravity is already substantial by galactic standards, the Colored One noted. This explains their dense musculature and robust skeletal structure. Dave wasn't listening anymore. Something about this situation had triggered a realization. These aliens, despite their advanced technology, seemed physically weaker than him, possibly much weaker, and they were clearly afraid. As the gravity eased slightly, perhaps they feared killing him. Dave gathered his strength. "So let me get this straight," he said between heavy breaths. "You guys think Earth is some kind of hellscape, and humans are, what, monsters?" The aliens exchanged glances again. "Your species evolved on a planet with high gravity, toxic atmosphere, extreme temperature variations, dangerous radiation levels from your sun, and constant exposure to microbial warfare," the colored alien explained carefully. "The average human possesses physical capabilities that would qualify as supernatural on most civilized worlds." Dave couldn't help but laugh, which seemed to unnerve the aliens further. "We're just regular people where I come from," he said. "Nothing special about us. You consume substances that would poison most species for pleasure," the smallest alien noted. "Your digestive system neutralizes compounds that would be lethal to us. Your epidermis resists radiation that would cause cellular collapse in our bodies, and your physical strength," it gestured to the broken robotic arm. Dave was starting to understand. In a universe apparently filled with fragile aliens, humans might be the outliers, not because we were advanced, but because we were forged in what they considered a biological nightmare. "So, what happens now?" Dave asked, his mind racing with the implications. "You drop me back on my death world and tell the rest of the galaxy to stay away?" The colored alien hesitated. "That was the initial recommendation. However, recent circumstances have changed our priorities." "What circumstances?" "The Hive," the tallest alien said gravely. "A predatory species expanding through the Orion Arm. They've destroyed 11 civilizations in the past solar cycle. Conventional defenses have proven ineffective against their biotechnology, and this concerns Earth." "How?" Dave asked, though he was beginning to suspect the answer. "The Galactic Council requires new defensive strategies," the colored alien explained. "Your species' natural resilience and adaptability present possibilities." Dave narrowed his eyes. "You want to use humans as weapons?" "As allies," the alien corrected smoothly. "With cultural integration and technological exchange." "Right," Dave said skeptically. "And if we decline this alliance?" The colored alien's expression remained unreadable. "Then we would be forced to consider your species a potential threat, given your physical capabilities and your planet's strategic position." Dave felt a chill that had nothing to do with the ship's temperature. "So, either we fight your war, or you'll consider us enemies." "That's not much of a choice. The needs of galactic civilization outweigh." A deafening alarm cut through the alien's words. The ship lurched violently, throwing everyone off balance. "Perimeter breach!" the smallest alien shrieked. "Hive drones detected in sectors 7 through 12. The ship rocked again, harder this time. The gravity restraints flickered, then failed completely. Dave found himself suddenly weightless, floating above the examination table as the aliens scrambled in panic. "How did they find us?" the tallest alien demanded. "We're in stealth configuration." "Unknown, but internal defenses are failing." The colored alien turned to Dave, its large eyes wide. "Human, the situation has accelerated our timeline." Dave steadied himself against a wall as artificial gravity partially returned. "What are you talking about?" "The Hive has found us," the alien explained rapidly. "Our weapons are ineffective against their exoskeletons. Our physical capabilities are inadequate for close combat." Dave felt a sinking feeling. "But mine might not be." The alien nodded solemnly. "Precisely." Before Dave could respond, the far wall of the chamber exploded inward. Through the smoke and debris, Dave glimpsed something massive and chitinous scuttling forward, multiple limbs, gleaming carapace, mandibles that could probably sever his arm with a single snap. The colored alien thrust something into Dave's hand, a metal rod that extended into what looked like a futuristic spear. "We underestimated your species," the alien said urgently. "Don't let us underestimate you as an individual." As the smoke cleared, Dave found himself facing not one but 3 insectoid creatures, each the size of a small car. Behind him, The three frail aliens cowered, clearly incapable of defending themselves. Dave gripped the spear tightly, his mind racing. He was a camping enthusiast from Minnesota, not a soldier, but as the lead creature reared up, revealing rows of razor-sharp mandibles, Dave felt something primal stir within him, a fighting instinct born from millennia of human evolution on a planet that these aliens considered a death trap. Maybe that's exactly what made him qualified for this. The creature lunged, and Dave raised his spear, suddenly aware that humanity's first introduction to galactic society might depend entirely on what happened in the next few seconds. "All right," he muttered, muscles tensing. "Let's see if being from a death world counts for something." The first hive drone launched itself at Dave with alarming speed. On instinct, he dropped to one knee and thrust the spear upward, catching the creature in what he hoped was a vulnerable spot. The spear's tip glowed blue on impact and sank deep into the creature's underside. The drone emitted a high-pitched shriek that made Dave's teeth vibrate. Dark, viscous fluid sprayed across his chest as he twisted the spear and pushed the writhing creature aside. "Holy shit," Dave gasped. It worked. The remaining drones hesitated, mandibles clicking rapidly as if communicating. Dave used the momentary reprieve to glance back at the aliens. The collared one, whom Dave had mentally dubbed Blue, stared at him with an expression that somehow conveyed both terror and fascination. "The weapon requires significant strength to penetrate their exoskeletons," Blue explained hastily. "Most species cannot generate sufficient force." Dave squared his shoulders as the drones began circling. "Lucky for you, I spent last summer helping my brother renovate his deck. You developed some muscle swinging a hammer all day." The second drone charged, this time staying low to the ground. Dave sidestepped, but not quickly enough. One of its limbs caught him across the ribs, sending him sprawling. The impact knocked the wind from his lungs, but adrenaline kept him rolling away as mandibles snapped at the space where his head had been. "Careful!" the smallest alien shrieked. "Their secretions are neurotoxic." "Now you tell me," Dave muttered, scrambling to his feet. His side throbbed, but nothing felt broken. The third drone had circled behind him while he was distracted. Before Dave could turn, it spat a glob of greenish fluid that splashed across his shoulder and neck. The effect was immediate, burning pain followed by alarming numbness. "The human is compromised," the tallest alien announced frantically. "Neurotoxin contact." But instead of collapsing as they clearly expected, Dave grunted and wiped away what he could with his sleeve. "Burns like hell," he acknowledged through gritted teeth. "But I can still move." Blue stepped forward, eyes wide. "Impossible. That concentration incapacitates all known sentient species within seconds." "Guess I'm built different," Dave said, rotating his shoulder experimentally. The numbness was spreading, but slowly. "My college roommate made hot sauce that felt worse than this." The nearest drone lunged again. This time, Dave was ready. He sidestepped and brought the spear down in a two-handed strike that pinned the creature to the floor. It thrashed wildly before going still. "Two down," Dave panted, trying to ignore the spreading numbness. "One to go." The final drone backed away, seemingly reassessing. Its mandibles clicked rapidly, and suddenly a panel in the ceiling exploded inward. Two more drones dropped into the chamber. "Oh, come on," Dave protested. "That's cheating." Blue had moved to a control panel and was frantically manipulating holographic controls. "Human, we must retreat to the command deck. More hive forces are breaching the lower levels." Dave yanked his spear free and backed toward the aliens. "Lead the way." Blue touched a section of the wall, revealing a hidden passage. Quickly, they hurried through the narrow corridor, the collared alien leading, with Dave bringing up the rear. The sounds of chittering and scuttling echoed behind them. "So these hive things," Dave asked as they ran, "what exactly are they after?" "Biomass," the tallest alien replied grimly. "They consume all organic matter, then move to the next viable system." "Charming," Dave muttered. They emerged onto a larger deck, with sweeping windows that revealed the vast emptiness of space and something else. A massive ship, angular and chitinous like the drones themselves, loomed nearby. "The hive carrier," Blue explained. It launched multiple boarding parties. The ship's command deck was a scene of chaos. More of the blue aliens were frantically working at stations, while security drones, smaller versions of the robotic arms Dave had broken earlier, hovered ineffectually. A distinguished-looking alien with elaborate markings on its neck approached. "Science Officer Zeline," it addressed Blue. "Explain the presence of the specimen outside containment." Before Blue, apparently named Zeline, could respond, the drones burst through the doorway behind them. Dave spun around, spear ready, as the command crew scattered in panic. "No time for bureaucracy," Dave snapped. "Unless you want to be bug food, let me handle this." The first drone lunged. Dave met it head-on, driving his spear through what appeared to be an eye cluster. The creature collapsed, twitched. The other drones spread out, forcing Dave to constantly pivot. The numbness in his shoulder was becoming problematic, limiting his range of motion. "Your security systems are useless," Dave shouted as he dodged another attack. "Don't you have weapons on this ship?" "Our weapons are calibrated for conventional threats." Zeline called back. "The Hive's exoskeletons resist energy weapons." "Then give me something heavy." Dave ducked under a spray of neurotoxin. "Anything?" Zeline hesitated, then rushed to a wall panel. The panel slid open to reveal what looked like a sledgehammer with a glowing blue head. "Graviton Maul," Zeline explained, struggling to lift it. "Used for emergency repairs. But it's too dense." Dave snatched it with his good arm. It was heavy, maybe 40 pounds, but manageable. "This'll work." With newfound confidence, Dave charged at the nearest drone. The hammer connected with a satisfying crunch, shattering exoskeleton. Green fluid sprayed everywhere as the creature collapsed. The command crew watched in stunned silence. "The specimen wields the Graviton Maul single-handed," one whispered. "Impossible." Dave was getting tired now, his movements slowing. The neurotoxin might not have paralyzed him, but it was taking a toll. The remaining drones seemed to sense his weakness, coordinating their movements more effectively. "I can't keep this up forever," Dave warned, backing toward the central console. Zeline approached the distinguished alien. "Supreme Navigator, the human's physical capabilities exceed all projections. We must reconsider." "Silence!" the Supreme Navigator snapped. "This specimen is merely an anomaly. Once the Hive is repelled, containment protocols will resume." Dave overheard this exchange and scowled. "Seriously? I'm saving your blue asses, and you're planning to stick me back in a cage?" Before the Navigator could respond, the ship rocked violently. Warning lights flashed across all consoles. "Hull breach in engineering," someone shouted. "Atmospheric venting in progress." Suddenly, the air began to rush toward the rear of the command deck. The drones scuttled for purchase as the decompression intensified. The aliens activated magnetic boots, anchoring themselves to the floor. Dave had no such technology. He dropped them all and desperately grabbed a console as the air pressure plummeted. His ears popped painfully, and his lungs began to burn. "Emergency protocols." The navigator gasped, struggling even with its magnetic anchoring. Dave's grip was slipping. The vacuum of space was seconds away from claiming him when Zeline made a decision. The alien detached something from its belt and slapped it onto Dave's chest. Immediately, a shimmering field surrounded him. "Emergency, life support, bubble." Zeline managed to explain through labored breathing. "Temporary." The rushing air slowed as emergency force fields activated, but the damage was done. Half the command deck was now exposed to the vacuum of space, protected only by a thin emergency barrier that flickered ominously. Dave found he could breathe again within the bubble, though the air tasted stale and metallic. "Thanks," he gasped to Zeline. The remaining drones had survived, anchored by their clawed appendages. They began advancing again, seemingly untroubled by the near-vacuum conditions. "They don't need air," the navigator explained, voice distorted through some kind of breathing apparatus. "Hive drones function in almost any environment." Dave looked around desperately. The decompression had scattered everything, and his hammer had been sucked toward the breach. Then he had a realization. "The vacuum doesn't bother them, but what about the cold?" Dave asked suddenly. "Cold?" Zeline repeated, not understanding. "Space is cold, right? Right? Super cold. And I noticed your ship is kept cold too." "But these things," Dave gestured at the drones, "they move like insects. Insects hate cold." Understanding dawned in Zeline's large eyes. "Exothermic metabolism, yes. Their movement would slow dramatically in extreme cold." Dave pointed to a control panel. "Can you vent something cold through those emergency vents?" Liquid nitrogen? Coolant? Celine moved quickly to a console. Engineering. Emergency cryonic protocol in command sector. The navigator started to protest, but Celine ignored the superior officer. Moments later, jets of white vapor began spraying from ceiling vents. The temperature plummeted instantly. Dave shivered violently inside his protective bubble, but the effect on the drones was dramatic. Their movements grew sluggish, then jerky, and finally they began to freeze in place. "It's working," Dave exclaimed through chattering teeth. Within minutes, the drones were completely immobilized, their exoskeletons covered in frost. Emergency crews in protective suits arrived to secure the command deck and repair the breach. As the situation stabilized, Celine approached Dave. "Your suggestion saved the command crew," the alien acknowledged. "And your combat prowess against the drones was educational." Dave crossed his arms. "Educational enough to reconsider keeping me as a lab rat?" The navigator joined them, eyeing Dave warily. "The specimen has demonstrated tactical intelligence alongside physical capabilities. This complicates matters." "My name is Dave," he corrected firmly. "And here's what's going to happen. You're going to treat me as an equal, not a specimen. You're going to tell me everything about these hive creatures and why they're attacking. Then we're going to figure out how to stop them together." "You propose an alliance?" the navigator asked incredulously. "I propose not dying," Dave clarified, "which seems to be a mutual goal." Celine stepped forward. "Supreme Navigator, the human's suggestion has merit. Conventional tactics have failed against the hive. Perhaps unconventional biology requires unconventional strategies." The navigator's gills fluttered in what Dave interpreted as resignation. "Very well, a temporary alliance. But this changes nothing about the classification of Earth as a death world." Dave smiled grimly. "Actually, I think it changes everything. You're about to learn that being from a death world might be exactly what this galaxy needs right now." As emergency repairs continued around them, Dave couldn't help but wonder how many other human weaknesses might turn out to be strengths in this alien battlefield. The numbness in his shoulder was already fading. Apparently, human biology was efficient at processing toxins too. The hive had come hunting easy prey and found something else entirely, and this was just one human. Dave smiled at the thought of what an actual trained soldier from Earth might do in his position. The hunt was just beginning, and the hunters were about to become the hunted. The temporary alliance with the ship's crew brought Dave some respect, but precious little time. Within hours, the hive carrier had launched a second, larger assault. "They're adapting," Celine explained, reviewing the tactical display. "The new drones have enhanced thermal regulation. The cold strategy won't work again." Dave, still sore but recovering faster than the aliens expected, studied the holographic display of the ship. "What's our status?" "Main engines damaged. Weapons at 40% capacity. Defense shields failing," the Supreme Navigator reported grimly. "We've sent distress signals, but reinforcements won't arrive for at least 14 cycles." "How long is that in human terms?" Dave asked. "Approximately 2 of your Earth days," Celine replied. Dave ran a hand through his hair. "We'll be bug food long before then." The navigator's gills fluttered with what Dave now recognized as agitation. "Perhaps if we offer the specimen—" "Dave?" Celine corrected, surprising both Dave and the navigator. "If we offer Dave to them, they might allow us time to escape." Dave rolled his eyes. "First, that's a terrible idea. Second, they're after biomass, remember. You said it yourself. They want all of us." An alarm sounded. The tactical display showed a new wave of boarding craft approaching. "They've targeted our remaining engine sections," a technician announced. "If they disable our propulsion entirely, we're sitting ducks," Dave finished. "Look, what do we actually know about these hive creatures? Their weaknesses?" Celine activated a detailed biological schematic. Hive drones function as extensions of the central consciousness. They communicate through pheromones and subsonic vibrations. Individual drones aren't intelligent, but collectively they adapt rapidly. Dave studied the diagram. "What's this central node here?" "The Queen Nexus, located deep within the carrier vessel." "So it's like a beehive," Dave mused. "Take out the Queen. The whole colony falls apart." The navigator scoffed. "The Queen Nexus is protected by thousands of elite Guardian drones. No assault team has ever penetrated more than 2 outer defensive layers." Dave wasn't listening. A plan was forming in his mind, a desperate, possibly suicidal plan, but the only one that made sense. "I need to get on that ship," he announced. The command deck fell silent. "Impossible," the navigator declared. "You'd be captured immediately," Zelene added. Dave pointed to a small hangar bay visible on the Hive carrier's schematic. "What about there? Looks like a maintenance access." Zelene zoomed in the display. "Theoretically accessible, but the radiation levels in that approach corridor would be lethal." "Lethal to you, maybe," Dave countered, "but Earth has radiation too. Some of our worst accidents exposed humans to massive doses. Most died, yes, but some survived." "You propose to gamble on your death world physiology?" the navigator asked incredulously. "I propose to use every advantage I have," Dave corrected. "And right now, being a death world human is apparently full of advantages you guys never considered." Zelene studied Dave thoughtfully. "The approach would require a single pilot craft, and once aboard, how would you locate and neutralize the Queen Nexus?" Dave tapped the schematic. "Can you load this map into something portable and give me some explosives?" "This is lunacy," the navigator protested. Another alarm sounded. The ship shuddered as more Hive drones breached the lower decks. "We're out of options," Dave insisted. "You said your weapons don't work well against them, but what about inside their own ship? If I can plant explosives directly on their Queen Nexus..." Zelene and the navigator exchanged glances. "It could work theoretically," Zelene admitted. "But the physiological strain alone..." "I'll worry about my physiology," Dave interrupted. "Just get me a ship and the explosives." 30 minutes later, Dave sat in the cockpit of what the aliens called a maintenance pod, essentially a glorified space moped with minimal shielding. Strapped to his back was a pack containing high-yield explosives and a holographic navigation device. "The radiation corridor is 10 seconds at full thrust," Zelene explained through the comms. "Even with the radiation hood, exposure will be significant." Dave adjusted the hood, a flimsy-looking helmet that supposedly offered some protection. "Remind me what symptoms I should expect." "Nausea, disorientation, eventually cellular breakdown." "Sounds like my college hangover," Dave quipped, trying to mask his fear. "If this works, I expect a first-class ticket back to Earth." "If this works," Zelene replied softly, "your species may be offered much more than that." Dave took a deep breath. "Launch in 3, 2, 1. The pod shot from the ship's emergency bay, accelerating toward the narrow maintenance corridor that led to the Hive carrier. Almost immediately, warning indicators flashed in the cockpit. The radiation levels climbed rapidly into what the aliens considered lethal territory. Dave felt it immediately, a wave of nausea, followed by a prickling sensation across his skin. He gritted his teeth and pushed forward. The corridor seemed endless, though his instruments indicated only seconds had passed. Finally, the pod slipped into a small, unguarded docking port on the Hive carrier. Dave stumbled out, fighting waves of dizziness. Blood trickled from his nose, and his vision blurred momentarily. "I'm in," he gasped into the communicator. "Feeling pretty awful, but moving?" "Impossible," came the navigator's voice. "Those radiation levels..." "Save it," Dave interrupted. "Guide me to the central chambers." Using the holographic map, Dave navigated through eerily organic corridors. The Hive ship's interior resembled a massive insect nest, with walls that seemed to pulse with life. The air was thick with what must be pheromones. His nose burned with each breath. Strangely, he encountered few drones. Most appeared to be focused on the assault. They never expected an attack on their home base, Dave realized. Why would they? No one's ever survived the approach. As he penetrated deeper into the ship, the effects of radiation exposure intensified. His hands shook, and occasional spasms racked his muscles. But he kept moving, following the map toward the Queen Nexus. "Vital signs critical," Zelene's concerned voice crackled through the communicator. "You should be unconscious." "Advantages of coming from a death world," Dave managed, though each word was a struggle. "We're really hard to kill." He finally reached a massive chamber unlike anything he'd seen before. In the center floated an enormous entity, part insect, part something entirely alien. Tendrils of neural tissue connected it to the ship itself. This was the Queen Nexus, the coordinating intelligence behind the Hive. Surrounding it were dozens of Guardian drones, larger and more heavily armored than any he'd encountered before. They turned toward him immediately, mandibles clicking in alarm. Dave reached for the explosives, but his radiation-weakened hands fumbled. A wave of Guardians surged toward him. In desperation, Dave did something unexpected. He laughed. The sound echoed through the chamber, stopping the Guardians in their tracks. Their antennae quivered in what seemed like confusion. "Your species employs sonic weapons?" Zaleen asked through the communicator. "No," Dave replied, still chuckling despite the pain. "It's just funny. All this way to get killed by bugs." He laughed again, louder this time. The Guardians recoiled. The Queen Nexus itself pulsated rapidly, tendrils withdrawing. Dave noticed the reaction. "They don't like laughter." "The vibration pattern," Zaleen theorized rapidly. "It must disrupt their communication frequencies." Understanding dawned. Dave took a deep breath and did something no trained soldier would ever do in combat. He began to sing, loudly and badly, "Sweet Caroline, bam, bam, bam." The effect was immediate and dramatic. The Guardians scattered in apparent agony. The Queen Nexus writhed, its neural connections fluctuating wildly. "The vibrations from your vocal cords!" Zaleen exclaimed. "The frequency range must be disruptive to their neural network." Dave kept singing every song he could remember from Neil Diamond to Metallica as he staggered forward. The Guardian seemed incapable of approaching him while he produced these sounds. "Human vocal range," Zaleen marveled. "It spans frequencies that are physically painful to their communication system." With shaking hands, Dave planted the explosives directly beneath the Queen Nexus. "Package delivered," he gasped between verses of "Enter Sandman. Now I just need to get out." "Impossible," the navigator cut in. "The radiation damage." "Shut up and watch me," Dave interrupted. Still singing hoarsely, he began the long journey back through the corridors, Guardian drones skittering away from the painful sound of his voice. By the time he reached the maintenance pod, Dave could barely stand. Blood poured from his nose and ears, and his vision had narrowed to a pinpoint. But he climbed into the cockpit and somehow managed to disengage from the hive ship. "Detonating in 5 seconds, he croaked, hitting the trigger. "Better move your ship." The explosion was spectacular. The hive carrier seemed to implode from within, secondary explosions cascading through its structure. Without the Queen Nexus to coordinate them, the drones attacking the alien ship suddenly froze, then began moving erratically, like insects sprayed with pesticide. Dave barely noticed. Consciousness was slipping away as the maintenance pod drifted in space. His last coherent thought was that he'd never see Minnesota again. He woke, unexpectedly, in what appeared to be a medical bay. Zaleen stood nearby, monitoring equipment Dave didn't recognize. "You're conscious," the alien observed with evident surprise. "Remarkable." Dave tried to sit up, but couldn't. "How am I alive?" "Your cellular regeneration rate is unprecedented," Zaleen explained. "Once we understood the pattern, we were able to accelerate the process. Still, by all medical logic, you should have died from radiation exposure." "Told you," Dave managed a weak smile. "Deathworlders are hard to kill." The door opened, and the Supreme Navigator entered, accompanied by several elaborately adorned aliens Dave hadn't seen before. "The Galactic Council representatives have arrived," the Navigator announced, voice unusually deferential. "They wish to speak with the human." One of the new aliens stepped forward. "David Thornton of Earth. Your actions have saved not only this vessel, but potentially countless civilizations threatened by the hive. The Council seeks to understand how this was possible." Dave exchanged glances with Zaleen, who nodded encouragingly. "It's simple, really," Dave explained. "We evolved on a planet that tried to kill us every day. Radiation from our sun, microbes everywhere, predators, natural disasters. Our bodies had to become incredibly resilient just to survive." "But the singing?" another council member inquired. "How did you know this would affect the hive?" Dave laughed weakly. "I didn't. I was just being human. We make noise when we're scared or happy or dying. Turns out our voices hit frequencies that scramble their neural networks. Pure luck." "Not luck," Zaleen interjected. "Adaptation. Humans evolved vocal capabilities for social cohesion and warning systems. It's merely coincidence that these same frequencies disrupt hive neural patterns. The council members conferred among themselves, then turned back to Dave. The Galactic Council has reached a decision, the lead representative announced. Earth will no longer be classified as a quarantine death world, but as a protected evolution zone. Furthermore, we wish to propose a formal alliance. Dave raised an eyebrow. What kind of alliance? One of mutual benefit. Your species possesses natural defenses against threats we cannot counter. We offer technological advancement and protection from less ethical civilizations who might exploit your people. And all those specimens you've been collecting over the years? Dave asked pointedly. The representatives looked uncomfortable. They will be returned immediately, with appropriate compensation. I'll need to speak with our governments, Dave said. This isn't a decision I can make alone. Of course, once you've recovered, you will be returned to Earth as an official envoy. After the council members departed, Zaleen remained behind. I've been assigned as cultural liaison to Earth, the alien explained. If you're willing to accept my assistance. Dave smiled. Beats being studied like a lab rat. I was wrong about your species, Zaleen admitted. We all were. We saw your physical capabilities as monstrous because they exceeded our own. But now I understand, your greatest strength isn't your radiation tolerance or muscle density. What is it then? Adaptability. You evolved not just to survive your world, but to thrive despite its dangers. When presented with impossible situations, humans improvise. Dave laughed. That's a fancy way of saying we make it up as we go along. Perhaps, Zaleen acknowledged, but it saved us all. Ipalag. 2 years later, the United Nations Galactic Embassy in Geneva hummed with activity. Representatives from 27 alien civilizations mingled with human diplomats in the grand atrium, beneath a sculpture symbolizing first contact, a simple camping tent under alien stars. Dave, now Ambassador Thornton, adjusted his uniform as he prepared to address the assembly. Beside him, Zaleen, now a permanent resident of Earth and an enthusiastic consumer of human music, reviewed presentation notes. Nervous? Zaleen asked. A little, Dave admitted. 2 years ago I was selling sporting goods in Minneapolis. Now I'm introducing the first joint human-alien military initiative, the Deathworld Defense Force. Zaleen nodded. Quite the name. Your people chose it, not us, Dave reminded the alien. Though I have to admit, it's growing on me. The initiative combined human physicality with alien technology. Turns out, when properly equipped, humans made exceptional peacekeepers in regions plagued by threats like the Hive, what aliens saw as terrifying Deathworld adaptations. Our endurance, strength, toxin resistance had become our greatest diplomatic assets. Earth itself had transformed. First contact had unified humanity in ways previously unimaginable. Ancient conflicts seemed petty when contrasted with the vastness of galactic civilization, and the technological exchange had accelerated human development by centuries. The medical benefits alone were staggering. Alien scientists, studying human cellular regeneration, had developed treatments for diseases previously considered incurable. In return, human doctors had introduced concepts of preventative medicine that revolutionized alien healthcare. As Dave took the podium, he surveyed the assembled delegates, human and alien, united in purpose. 2 years ago, a camping trip in Minnesota changed the course of 2 civilizations, he began. What the Galactic Council once feared as dangerous adaptations turned out to be exactly what was needed in our shared crisis. They came expecting monsters from a death world. They found partners instead. He paused, making eye contact with Zaleen, who nodded encouragingly. We now understand that Earth isn't a death world at all, Dave continued. It's a crucible, a place where the challenges of survival forged something unique in the galaxy, a species that refuses to accept limitations. That's the true legacy of our evolution on Earth. Not our strength or our resilience, but our stubborn refusal to accept that something is impossible. The chamber erupted in applause, humans clapping, aliens expressing approval through various cultural gestures. Later, as the formal proceedings concluded, Dave and Zaleen stood on the embassy's observation deck, watching the sunset over Lake Geneva. The Council has approved exploration beyond the Orion Arm, Zaleen mentioned. They're requesting human volunteers join the expeditionary force. Into the unknown, huh? Dave smiled. Sounds like a job for Deathworlders. Zelene's expression turned serious. The universe is full of wonders, Dave. But also dangers we haven't imagined. Are humans ready? Dave gazed at the darkening sky, where the first stars were becoming visible. Somewhere up there, countless worlds waited, with challenges no one could predict. But that was the point, wasn't it? The universe had been preparing humanity all along, through every hardship Earth had thrown at us. Ready? Dave repeated, a smile spreading across his face. Zelene, we've been training for this our entire evolutionary history. The universe doesn't know what's coming. As night fell, completely revealing the vast starfield above, Dave added softly, they think we're Deathworlders. They haven't realized yet. We're just getting started.